Krishna, we'd like to welcome all of you all to the online Tirtha Yatra experience. Today, we will be taking you on a very, very special darshan to the very holy and the most auspicious place of Ayodhya Dham. Yes, this is the very place where Lord Ram was born, and this is the very place that became world famous. Practically, everyone in the whole world were talking about the Ram Janmabhoomi and the making of the temple and the inauguration of the temple by Narendra Modi ji recently. And practically, on one particular day, which was historical for the world, in the Times Square, in New York, the entire Times Square was lit up with the beautiful picture or image of Lord Ram, and that is like a historic moment for most Indians who are at least concerned with this aspect. So we are very, very fortunate that on this series of Holy Dhams, 30 days, 30 Dhams, we're taking you on this very auspicious journey of Ayodhya Dham. And we would like to welcome all of you to immerse yourself in the consciousness of Ayodhya Dham and take this journey with us, take this holy pilgrimage with us. And we'll be taking you across all the beautiful and the most holy of the places of Ayodhya. And along with the description of the beautiful place of Ayodhya, we'll also be talking about many stories in connection with all these places. That way, it will make your experience of Ayodhya Dham complete, beautiful, and very enhanced, and a very devotional one. Sitting in the comforts of your home, sitting in the safety of your home, we would like to invite you very far away at the banks of Sarai River and into the holy abode of Ayodhya. The word Ayodhya comes from the word Yuddha. The word Yuddha means fight, and Ayuddha means the place where there is no fight. Ayodhya essentially means a place where there is no fight, both internally and externally. Ayodhya is a place of peace. Ayodhya is a place where Dasharath lives. What is the meaning of Dasharath? The word Dasharath comes from the. There are two aspects to the word Dasharath. Dasharath means Rath means chariot, and Dasharatha means the one whose chariot can go in 10 directions. Dasharatha also means the body also is compared to a chariot many times. The Sumani of the Upanishad, the Sveteshwatara Upanishad, talks about how the body is like a chariot, and the five senses are the five horses, and so many beautiful aspects of the chariot the Upanishads explain. Similarly, the word Dasharatha means the one whose the body is like a chariot, but one whose chariot can go in 10 directions, and these 10 directions is specifically spoken about by the 10 senses. So Dasharath also means the one whose 10 senses are under control. Just like Dasharath has control over his chariot and can take the chariot in 10 directions, similarly, Dasharath has control over his 10 senses and keep the 10 senses under his control. And Dasharath lives in Ayodhya. And Ayodhya is a place where there is no fight. That means Ayodhya is a place where there is peace. So essentially, when you have your 10 senses under control and when your mind is peaceful, Ayodhya represents the mind. So when your 10 senses are under control and your mind is peaceful, in such a place, Ram is born. In such a place, God is born. So that means for you to have God born to you, for you to give birth to Lord Ram, you need to have your 10 senses under control and your mind should be peaceful. That is what Ayodhya really represents for all of us. We're all, as aspiring devotees, trying to give birth to the Lord in our own lives. And the way to give birth to the Lord in our own lives is by this aspect of understanding Dasharath and the kingdom of Ayodhya. Ram, the word Rama means pleasure. The moment you hear the word Rama, you feel like smiling. The moment you look at Lord Ram, you feel like smiling. And the word Ravana means the one who can make you cry. So you have to choose between either Ram, the one who can make you smile, or Ravan, the one who can make you cry. Therefore, Ramayana is actually a choice that all of us have, whether we want to choose the Ram consciousness or the Ravan consciousness. The Ram consciousness is the one that gives pleasure to others. The Ravan consciousness is the one that gives trouble to others. Ram makes others happy. He's ready to do all kinds of sacrifices for the pleasure of others. And Ravan is the one who is ready to exploit others for his own pleasure. And therefore, Ramayana is not just a age-old story, but it's a presently applicable story in our own lives. Ayodhya, as I said, the Valmiki Ramayana describes Ayodhya in so many amazing ways. One of the ways in which Valmiki Ramayana describes Ayodhya is like a game board. It gives it a description of the chaturanga, the game of dice, and that is the shape of Ayodhya. Ayodhya is also called as Ashtapadi. The kingdom of Ayodhya, the lengthwise is 120 miles. That is what the size of Ayodhya city was when Dasharatha was ruling it. And the breadth of Ayodhya was 30 miles. That is the length and breadth of the whole city, and it is the form of a cross or in the form of the dice game, basically. That is the shape in which Ayodhya is. And across the whole Ayodhya, around the whole Ayodhya, there is a moat or there is um, a a trench of water where because in those days the cities would be protected by such moats so that the enemy cannot enter the city at will, and in these moats, in these water, there will be all kinds of crocodiles and all kinds of dangerous sea creatures, and therefore the city would be protected in that way. It is explained that the walls of Ayodhya were practically impenetrable. It is explained the walls of Ayodhya were designed in such a way that if any size of an entity enters without sanction, the walls of Ayodhya would shoot weapons. If a mosquito enters, still it will kill it. And if a Garuda enters, it will still be able to shoot weapons at the smallest of the smallest and the biggest of the biggest creatures if somebody tries to enter without permission. And not just that, the design of the wall of Ayodhya was made in such a way that it can detect evil intentions. So if somebody enters a city with an evil intention, it can detect. That is how powerful the system of Ayodhya was. It is explained that the protective wall of Ayodhya was so high, and the moat of Ayodhya, the water moat, was so deep that it is explained that the water was so deep that when the sun was passing over and the sun would absorb the water vapors from the moat, it would actually develop clouds in the sky, and these clouds would try to pass over the wall. It would hit the wall and again rain back water into the moat. That is the kind of description that the city of Ayodhya has. You can imagine how amazing the city would have been. It is explained the city of Ayodhya had no charitable people, and the city of Ayodhya had nobody who sold locks. No shop ever sold locks in the city of Ayodhya. Why no charitable people? Because you will give charity only when there are beggars. If there are no beggars, whom will you give charity to? There are many places in the world today, even today, imagine the height of Kali Yuga, there are so many places where there are no beggars at all. I know a person of so many cities, absolutely zero beggars. Whom will you give charity to if you want to also? And therefore, it is explained Ayodhya was a place where nobody gave charity because there were no beggars. Dasharath gave such profuse amount of wealth in charity already that he overcame the ocean of beggars by giving charity. He overcame the ocean of ignorance by studying the scriptures. He overcame the ocean of anarthas by deep spiritual practices. So Dasharath was a profound and powerful person who was ruling Ayodhya. And it is explained that the city of Ayodhya had no shop that sold locks because nothing was locked in Ayodhya. Even the treasury of the king was completely open and nobody ever stole it. And that is a kind of greatness of the city of Ayodhya that is described in the Ramayana. It is explained that there are so many amazing places of darshan in the city of Ayodhya. As I'm going to tell you the story of the city of Ayodhya and so many of the descriptions, I'm going to also take you to all these holy places one by one. The first place we will actually begin our Dham Yatra with is a place which is known as Treta Ke Thakur. Treta Ke Thakur means in Hindi, if you really understand, it means the master of Treta Yuga. Lord Ram was the master of Treta Yuga. He was, supposed to be the incarnation of that age, and therefore it is explained that the name of this temple of Lord Ram is known as Treta Ke Thakur. And this temple is on the banks of the Sarai River. And it is explained that in this particular place, Lord Ram performed so many Ashwamedha Yajnas. And it is explained that this was the place where Lord Ram actually performed so many of the Ashwamedha Yajnas. So let us please begin our Dham Yatra by taking darshan of Treta Ke Thakurji. Let us have darshan of this beautiful deity of Lord Ram and seek blessings so that we enter the city of Ayodhya and the mood of Ayodhya in the right consciousness. So now that we have had darshan of Lord Ram, obviously it is important to understand what is the whole consciousness mood behind Lord Ram's appearance in Treta Yuga. So before we get into the appearance of the Lord, I'm going to really help you all understand why the Lord appeared. And in fact, there are 4 reasons why the Lord appeared. And just like the Chaitanya Charitamrita speaks about 2 external reasons and 2 internal reasons, the Ramayana also talks about 2 external reasons why the Lord appeared and 2 internal reasons why the Lord appeared. Before we get into that, let us please find and look at the place where Lord Ram appeared. It's amazing to see this palace of Dasharath Maharaj, which is known as Chakravarti Dasharath Mahal. And this palace is the very place where Lord Ram performed so many of his beautiful childhood pastimes. This palace is the very place where the whole idea of Ram Janma took place. And around this area of Ram Janma Bhoomi and the palace of Dasharath Maharaj are so many amazing places. So I'm going to first give you all darshan of 2 most auspicious places in the entire universe. One is a place which is Dasharath, Chakravarti Dasharath Mahal. Let us first have darshan of Chakravarti Dasharath Mahal. And while you're having darshan of this place, please imagine Lord Ram playing around in the courtyard of this place. And now that we have seen Chakravarti Dasharath Mahal, I would like to invite you all to see the most historic place in the whole universe. The place which people have been dying to visit in the recent past, at least, the place where people have been wishing they were a part of, This is the place which is historical Ram Janmabhoomi. So please let us have darshan of Ram Janmabhoomi here. And this is the place where Lord Ram appeared. Before we discuss the pastime of why he appeared and how he appeared and all that, let us please first have darshan of Ram Janmabhoomi also. So I would like to begin by talking about the 4 reasons why the Lord appeared. The 2 are, as I said, external reasons, which everyone in the world knows. One, obviously, is to kill Ravan, to kill demons, to kill the Rakshasas who have been harassing the demigods. That's the primary reason for the appearance of the Lord. The second reason why the Lord appeared is, again, it's an external reason. The Acharyas explain that the Lord wanted to teach the world what it means to respect elders, respect the words of elders. Lord Ram just walked out of the house, walked out of the palace of Ayodhya, walked out of the city of Ayodhya, practically just by one statement of Dasharath and Kaikeyi. Just one time they said, no arguments, no discussions. They just walked out. That's one of the ideas why we call Ram as Maryada Purushottam. He's come to teach us how to respect elders. The third reason, which is a little more internal reason, a little subtler reason why Ram appears in this world, is in connection with Mother Sita. In the spiritual world, the Supreme Lord, along with his eternal consort Lakshmi Devi, they were having a discussion once. And Lakshmi Devi, from the spiritual world, the Vaikuntha planets, she looked below and she saw there was a small hut in which a husband and wife were sitting together and were discussing very intimately. They were speaking with their heart out. And while this happened, Sita, or rather goddess Lakshmi at that point, she felt very bad. The reason she felt bad was because they were not having any time as husband and wife together. Absolutely zero time of, where they could have personal discussions. Why? Because the Lord was so famous and so popular that thousands of people wanted to always be around the Lord and serve the Lord. And the natural result was that with so many servants all around you, with so many servants, practically in every nook and corner of your house, there's no question of privacy. And to top it all, even if there was no one around, the Ananta Shesh, Sheshanag, the bed on which Lord Vishnu lies down, the Sheshanag is constantly looking at the Lord and the Lakshmi Devi, with his 1,000 eyes. Imagine if 1,000 eyes are staring at you constantly, where is the question of privacy? So the goddess of fortune was very upset with the Lord that they absolutely have no privacy at all. So she told the Lord, why don't you take birth on the earth and get some privacy? As husband and wife on the earth, at least we'll have some privacy. The Lord immediately agreed. And he said, yes, we will incarnate. I will appear as Ram and you appear as Sita. And then we'll marry and we'll have a lot of private time together. And they got married. First of all, before they got married, they spent many years in separation from each other. And when they finally got married and they were together in Ayodhya, there was a big problem. Usually, when a girl comes to her husband's house, one of the big problems for her to have a private time with her husband is the mother-in-law. The mother-in-law hardly allows any kind of privacy to be available to the newly married couple. And here, Sita had not one mother-in-law; she had 353 mother-in-laws. Dasharatha was married to so many queens. Imagine the kind of trouble that she had. No privacy at all. Now, in spite of getting married, in spite of being incarnating on the earth, they had no privacy. And that was one of the reasons why they went on 14 years of exile. So now, obviously, many people think that Kaikeyi sent them. Many people think that Dasharatha asked them to go, and all that. That's one of the reasons. But a more internal reason was that the two of them wanted to have some private time. So those 14 years technically were their extended private time together. And then we find the fourth reason why the Lord appeared is because this is where there is a beauty of two dhams intersecting, the beauty of how Lord Ram is actually one of the purposes is to worship his own deity in the form of Lord Ranganath. It is explained that Lord Brahma, he wanted to worship the Supreme Lord, and the Lord appeared to him in the form of Ranganath, the most holy and the most auspicious deity, which is currently worshipped in Srirangam. And that Ranganath deity was offered by Brahma to Ikshvaku. Ikshvaku gave it down in his descendants, and it finally appeared to the kings of the Ikshvaku dynasty, where Lord Ram belongs, the Solar dynasty. In that lineage, from Ikshvaku, the 16th king was named as Devavrata. And from the Devavrata, it came down all the way to Dasharath. And then from Dasharath, it came down to Lord Ram. So Ranganath was used to a certain standard of worship in the Satyaloka, in the heaven, in Brahmaloka, in Lord Brahma's planet. But when he came down from the different kings, the earthly kings, the standard reduced. And Dasharath was doing quite a good job, but Ranganath was not satisfied with the standard of deity worship. So Ranganath realized the only way I can increase the standard of deity worship is if I only come. And therefore, Lord Ram appears in the Ikshvaku dynasty, in the family of Dasharath, so that he can set a standard to the world in what way Ranganath should be worshipped. And that was the fourth reason why the Lord appears in Ayodhya. And we find obviously Lord Ram gives this deity of Ranganath to Vibhishan. And Vibhishan ideally, Vibhishan was not interested in the deity of Ranganath. He was interested in only Ram. He was telling Ram, you come with me to Lanka. Ram said, I can't come with you to Lanka. I have to rule Ayodhya. Vibhishan kept insisting. Ram said, fine, just go and have a look at Ranganath's deity. When Vibhishan went and looked at Ranganath's deity, he went mad. He immediately agreed. The reason he agreed was because the facial expression of Ranganath was exactly matching Lord Ram. So imagine, Lord Ram, when he is worshipping Ranganath, is actually two in one. So he is worshipping himself, and that is why Vibhishan took Ranganath from Ayodhya. And of course, Ranganath had another pastime. He got stuck in Srirangam only, and he didn't go further to Lanka. And that is how Ranganath appeared from Ayodhya to Srirangam. So it is explained that Chakravarti Dasharath Mahal is one of those historic palaces where so many amazing and intricate details happened of the Ramayana. And one of the details that happened is this is the place where Lord Ram went out on exile from. It's one of the most painful experiences of the Ramayana, one of the most painful parts of the Ramayana. When you read the Ramayana, if you read this part, you'll cry. I'm going to share with you all a very beautiful analogy that Kalidas gives in the Raghuvamsham. Raghuvamsham is one of the most amazing Mahakavya of Kalidas. And here is an analogy that Kalidas gives in the Raghuvamsham, summing up the entire story of the exile of Lord Ram. Kalidas says that Kaikeyi spoke those two boons that came out from her mouth. Kalidas compares the mouth of Kaikeyi to a pit of a snake. So if you have seen snakes building this, mountains or homes of theirs, typically the snake holes are very deep holes, and typically the snake enters into the hole and comes out from the same hole. But Kalidas compares the mouth of Kaikeyi to a snake hole, and from her mouth, two snakes came out, which were in the form of two boons. And Kalidas explains that when do these two snakes come out? These two snakes come out. Usually, if you have seen snake holes, they are exposed to the environment, climate. It's open basically. So sometimes rainwater enters into these holes. So when rainwater enters into these holes, then the snakes come out immediately. So it is explained that the rainwater that entered into the hole of the mouth from which the curse, or rather the two boons, came out is two things. One is the promise of Dasharath originally, and second is the reminder of mantra recently. So these acted as rainwater which entered into Kaikeyi's mouth, and from her mouth came out these two boons, or in the form of two snakes. And when these two snakes came out from her mouth, what did they do? The snakes, as soon as they come out from their hole, they are very angry, because just imagine they are just chucked out of their house, suddenly without any information. And as soon as these two snakes come out, the first thing they do out of anger is bite the person who is closest to them. And here, from when they came out from Kaikeyi's mouth, the first person that was close to them was Dasharath. And therefore, both the snakes went and bit Dasharath. And that is how Dasharath dies. So it is explained, such a beautiful analogy, such a beautiful way of explaining how the snakes are envious creatures. It is explained that the snakes are the most envious creatures, and they carry poison. And when the snake bites, the poison affects you and kills you. And therefore, the words that came out from Kaikeyi's mouth are the form of snakes. And these two snakes are poisonous snakes. They have the power to kill you. And therefore, anybody who hears these words, they can't survive. The entire Ayodhya was affected by the poison that came out from the mouth of Kaikeyi. So imagine what kind of power the words of Kaikeyi had. There are two types of diseases in this world. There are physical diseases, there are mental diseases. Physical diseases, some of them are contagious and some of them are not. Just like we are dealing with a virus that is highly contagious. But there are many diseases that are not so contagious. Like, say, for example, if somebody has malaria and you sit next to a person who has malaria, you won't get malaria. If somebody has some disease that, like, say, somebody has cancer, you sit next to a person who has cancer, you're not going to get cancer. So some physical diseases are contagious and some physical diseases are not contagious. But all mental diseases are contagious. So Ayodhya, at this point in time, we find that one person was infected by a mental disease of envy. And that was Kaikeyi. And the reason she was affected by envy, because originally the germs were in Manthara's mind. The germ of envy was in Manthara's mind. And Manthara was not from Ayodhya. She came from Afghanistan. She came from another place, So she didn't belong to the culture of Ayodhya. She came from another country, Kaikeya Desh, and she brought in the culture of another country, another thought process. And she entered that thought process into the mindset of Kaikeyi. And Kaikeyi was infected with this mental disease of envy. And when she was infected by the mental disease of envy, from her mouth the words came out. And those words infected Dasharath. When a common man gets infected with a mental disease, with any kind of disease for that matter, maximum one family gets affected, 4 or 5 people who are very close to him. But when a leader gets affected by a mental disease, an entire country gets affected. Therefore, the previous night, Dasharath was infected with this disease. And because Dasharath was infected with this disease, and he was a leader, by the next morning, entire Ayodhya was mentally disturbed. Everyone was crying. Everyone was so disturbed. And when the entire country gets disturbed, two people walk out of the country. One is God, and second is peace. Ram and Sita walked out of Ayodhya. And therefore, we find that Ayodhya, this whole story of Ayodhya is a very intense story. Ayodhya is a very intense place. And the entire Ayodhya is filled with one prominent rasa, which is known as Karuna Ras. Karuna Ras is one of the most powerful rasas in the entire Ramayana. Karuna means compassion. Karuna also is a mood of sacrifice. It is explained leadership is about responsibility, and responsibility is about sacrifice. And sacrifice means crying. So when a leader cries, the followers are happy. And when the followers cry, leaders are happy. In today's world, all followers are crying and leaders are all happy guys. But in Ayodhya, the leaders are all crying. Why they're crying? Because they want their followers to be happy. So that is the whole mood of Ayodhya, the whole mood of Karunaras. So Ram Janmabhoomi that we are just visited, we just had darshan of, it represents the place where Ram was born. When we say Ram was born, what was born? It's not just the physical birth of Ram, it is also the birth of values. It is also birth of principles. It is also birth of Siddhanta. It is also birth of ideologies, mindsets. And therefore, Ram was born on Navami day. And the word Navami is a very important word in numerology. And the number 9, if you actually multiply 9 by any number, you will get 9 only. 9 into 9 is 9, it adds 9. 9 into 2 is 18, 8 plus 1 is again 9. 9 into 3 is 27, 2 plus 7 is again 9. You go on and on, it will always be 9 only. Well, that's how Ram is. Very, very predictable, very straight, very, very principled, Therefore, Ram chose the Navami day to be born, and not just the Navami day. He chose the most auspicious constellation of all the auspicious stars in alignment. And at such an auspicious hour, Lord Ram was born. It is explained that Ram was born on the Navami day at 12 noon, afternoon time. And it's explained that when Ram was born, Dasharath was so happy and so excited that he declared that for the next 7 years, no taxes will be collected in Ayodhya. Imagine what a declaration! He was so happy that Ram was born, and when you're happy, you want to share that happiness with others, and that's what Dasharath did. So Dasharath was thrilled when he held his little baby in his hand, and it's explained Lord Ram, when he was born with such a beautiful complexion. The Acharyas explained Ram was a combination of two elements. Markata money is a particular type of jewel, very, very precious jewel, priceless. It's green in color. It's called emerald green in color, and molten gold. So this Lord Ram's color is a combination of powdered emerald green and molten gold put together. So it's greenish gold in complexion. That is a complexion of Lord Ram. If you want to know exactly how Lord Ram looks, and is explained that immediately after Lord Ram, the same day, in the second half, which is actually Ram was born on Navami day, and the next day, Lakshman and Shatrughna were born in the afternoon time, and the previous day, the day on which Ram was born, in the evening time, Bharat was born. So there's a gap of 12 hours in the birth of these three sets of children, basically. Ram, Bharat, Lakshman, Shatrughna, like that. And it is explained that if you study the Ramayana, the entire childhood of Lord Ram is underplayed in the Ramayana. The entire childhood of Lord Ram is very, very short. 20 verses. Whole childhood Ram is over. So Ram is born. 20 verses later, Dasharath is thinking of marrying Lord Ram. So imagine, so fast forwarded. Why is the childhood of Lord Ram underplayed in the Ramayana? Because the mood of Ramayana is not about childhood. Ram is known as Anushtan Pradhan. Anushtan Pradhan means he's come here to show the world what it means to be an ideal human being. You can't show that in childhood. And therefore, Ram's childhood is fast forwarded because it's the Valmiki Ramayana is written in alignment with the mood with which the incarnation of the Supreme Lord is there. So the scripture is written in that mood. Krishna is known as Anubhav Pradhan. Krishna's not come here to teach us how ideal human beings should live. What is his purpose of coming here? He's come here to teach us, give us an experience of the spiritual world, an Anubhav of the spiritual world. So what Krishna does in Vrindavan is like a trailer. If you like the 3-minute trailer, and you want to see the 3-hour movie, you need to pay a price. Trailer is free, but the movie you have to pay. So similarly, Krishna coming and showing his pastimes in Vrindavan, and therefore you'll find the childhood pastimes in Vrindavan are in 30 chapters, 35 chapters of Srimad Bhagavatam. Elaborate descriptions of childhood. Why? That's the purpose of Krishna coming. He's giving us elaborate experience of the spiritual world. And therefore, Lord Ram's childhood is very quickly underplayed in the Ramayana. We'll go a little further and see some of the other aspects of Ayodhya, which are amazing and so special. I would like to take you all to the next place, which is known as Kanaka Bhavan. Kanaka Bhavan is the palace of Kaikeyi. And interestingly, Mother Kaikeyi loved Lord Ram much more than Kaushalya in the beginning. It is explained, Ram would spend more time with Kaikeyi than with Kaushalya also. That was the kind of love that they had. That is a kind of intimacy that they had. And Kaikeyi was so happy when Sita and Ram got married that she gave her own palace to Sita. Kanaka Bhavan is technically the palace of Kaikeyi originally, which was given to Sita by Kaikeyi as a gift. So imagine how much she loved Ram and how much she loved Sita to have given her own palace to Sita as a gift. And therefore, before we go any further, I would like to give you all darshan of this most beautiful palace of Kanaka Bhavan. And imagine Mother Sita, the great goddess of fortune, the most beautiful personality in the entire universe, living in this palace. It is explained Sita was so beautiful that the sun and the moon had never seen her because she would always remain inside the palace. When she was out, she would move in palanquins. And it is explained that the earth never felt her touch because she always wore golden sandals. And it's explained her skin was so delicate and so soft that if a leaf fell on her skin, anywhere on her skin, that section of the skin would turn red. That is a kind of delicate personality Sita was. So imagining and trying to meditate on these aspects of Mother Sita, let us please have darshan of Kanaka Bhavan. Going further, I'll take you all to a beautiful place, one of my favorite places in Ayodhya, which is the Sarayu River. The Sarayu River is an eternal associate of Lord Ram's pastimes. Just like the Yamuna is so much an associate of Krishna's pastimes, similarly Sarayu is very much an eternal associate of Lord Ram's pastime. Ayodhya was built on the banks of the Sarayu River, literally. And it explained, before Ram crossed to the forest, walked into the forest, traveled into the forest, Ram passed over the Sarayu River. Sarayu River almost kind of becomes like a border to the city of Ayodhya, the immediate city of Ayodhya. And it's explained, Sarayu River has a historical significance in the Ramayana because there's so many things connected with Sarayu. One time, when Ram, Lakshman, and Sita were in the forest, they were, they were staying in Panchavati at some point, Nasik, which you all have already had darshan of and already have visited the Dham of Nasik. So when they were staying in Panchavati, they would go on to have a bath in the Godavari River early in the morning. One time during the winter season, if you have gone to Nasik during winter, you'll understand this. It's very, very cold. So Ram, Lakshman, Sita went to the Godavari River to have a bath during the peak of winter season. And Ram and Sita were feeling the coldness of the Godavari River. And they were, thinking a little bit about the coldness. At that time, Lakshman spoke about Bharat and his experience of Sarayu. Lakshman told Ram and Sita, if you think this is cold, you can never imagine how cold Sarayu is. In the winter season, it is Lakshman explained to Lord Ram, the Sarayu River gets so cold in the peak of winter season. The Sarayu River gets so cold that elephants coming from the forest to drink water, they would come down at afternoon, noontime, peak of heat. They would come down during winter season But they would come next to the Sarai River, and the water, the water vapors of the Sarai River, when they come out, and the wind blows on the elephants. The elephants have quite a thick skin, but when the wind would blow on the elephants, cold waters of the Sarai River, the elephants would run away. Without drinking water, they would just run away because they couldn't bear the coldness of the Sarai River. Lakshman was telling Ram, Bharat has a bath in the Sarai River every day at 2 o'clock in the morning. Do you imagine how cold the water in the Sarai River would be? Why was Bharat having water in the Sarai River at 2 o'clock in the morning? Because he felt that anybody looks at me first thing in the morning, their day will get spoiled because I'm offender to Lord Ram. Because he felt responsible that Ram has gone to exile for 14 years because of him. And he felt nobody should look at me first thing in the morning. And usually people get up Brahma Muhurta 4:30 or there. So to be safe, he would get up at 2 o'clock and have a bath in the cold waters of the Sarai River. So when Lakshman described this to Lord Ram, Ram broke down. And he was so touched by Bharat, he actually told Lakshman that I want to go back to Ayodhya immediately. This was the only time in the entire 14 years Ram wanted to go back in between. Why? Because he heard about Bharat's sacrifice. So now that we're going to have darshan of the Sarai River, we will also have darshan of Nandigram. Nandigram is a place where Bharat resided for 14 years while Lord Ram was away in the forest and on exile. So Bharat gave himself a self-imposed exile. In fact, Bharat was so great that when Ram met Vali in Kishkinda, Ram had shot Vali from hiding, and Vali was dying. He had an arrow embedded on his chest. When Ram came there to meet Vali, the first thing Vali asked him is, "How can you do this? You are the brother of Dharmatma Bharat. How can you kill me from hiding?" Imagine, here is a monkey dying very far away in Kishkinda, Kishkinda, south of India. And Bharat was ruling north of India and Ayodhya. But here, a monkey came to know that Bharat is Dharmatma. So that means the glory of Bharat had spread across the country, literally. And Vali considered Bharat to be a Dharmatma. Why? Because of the kind of nature that Bharat had. People actually began to love him. And in fact, a lot of people compared Bharat to Ram in greatness, in his Dharmatmata. And so therefore, Bharat is considered to be Dharmatma. So he lived in Nandigram, which was on the outskirts of Ayodhya, not exactly close to Ayodhya. It's about about an hour and a half journey from Ayodhya to reach Nandigram. And it is explained that Bharat lived in Nandigram not in a palace. He constructed a hermitage for himself. Just like Ram would live in Panchoti or anywhere else for the 14 years, he constructed something very similar for himself. And he ate only once a day. And that too, his only meal was barley soaked in cow urine without salt. It's not that he added masala and salt and all that. Nothing. Just barley soaked in cow urine once a day. For 14 years, that was his only meal. And he never slept on the floor because he felt Ram is sleeping on the same level. I can't sleep on that level. I have to sleep below. So he dug a hole 2 feet below the ground and he would sleep 2 feet below the ground. Why? Because he simply felt I'm not qualified to sleep at the same level as Lord Ram. And he didn't rule the Ayodhya. The Paduka of Lord Ram, the footwear of Lord Ram ruled Ayodhya. So you can imagine what kind of a person he was. Here is an example of someone who took the responsibility of leadership, but never took the rights of leadership. He had the right of Rajbhog. He had the right of a palace. He had the right of everything that a king had rights to. But he didn't take all those rights. But he focused on his responsibilities. 14 years later, when Bharat returned Ayodhya back to Lord Ram, 14 years later, the kingdom of Ayodhya was 9 times bigger than what Dasharatha had given Bharat. So imagine, Bharat did all the responsibilities of the king, but without taking the facilities of a king. That's the greatness of Bharat. And therefore, it's called as Dharmatma. So now we will have darshan of both the Sarai River and Nandigram. And specifically in Nandigram, we're going to have darshan of something known as Bharat Kund. This is the place where Bharat would have bath. This is the place where Bharat would perform his austerities and his puja and all that. So please let us have darshan of Nandigram and the Sarai River and let us purify ourselves by mentally offering our respects to Dharmatma Bharat. Now I'm going to take you out to a very interesting place, and I consider this place one of my. I love this place simply because there is a beautiful story connected to this place. This place is known as Mani Parvat. There is a story connected to this place with the Ramayana, with the story of the Ramayana. It's explained that when Ram and Lakshmana were fighting against Ravana, Indrajit, and the whole army of Lanka, there were many points in the war where emergencies would take place, and there was one particular emergency where Lakshmana had collapsed, and Ravan had embedded the shield weapon into the chest of Lakshman. It's a very powerful spear penetrated through the chest of Lakshman, and Lakshman was unconscious, almost on the verge of dying. And then Hanuman was sent to the north to get the herbs, especially the Sanjeevani herbs. Hanuman picked up the herbs, so he obviously couldn't find the herbs, so he picked up the entire mountain. And as he was returning back from there, on his way back, he passed over Ayodhya city, over Nandigram more specifically. And as Hanuman was passing over Nandigram, Bharat saw Hanuman passing over. He saw this Vanara carrying a huge mountain. He couldn't figure out who it was. So he felt there is some security threat. So he shot an arrow and pulled Hanuman down. And Hanuman crash landed on the ground with that mountain. And when Hanuman crash landed on the ground with that mountain, a small piece of that mountain fell off in that place. And that piece of mountain that fell off is now known as Mani Parvat. Mani refers to Sanjeevani, the herb of the Sanjeevani. And it is explained that a small section of the Sanjeevani herb fell there. So then when Hanuman fell off, he saw Bharat, and Bharat looked very much like Lord Ram. Very, very close resemblance. Hanuman was confused. How is Ram here? And then he understood this is not Ram, this is Bharat. And then Hanuman said, why did you stop me? Lakshman is dying there. I need to go and give these herbs there. So Bharat, when he heard that Lakshman is dying, he was really disturbed. And he told Hanuman, you can go back, but please, before you go, I have a request. Please, you have to consider this. Please inform Lakshman's mother, Sumitra, that this has happened to Lakshman. Bharat was fed up of giving bad news. He has given a lot of bad news to people of Ayodhya. So he didn't want to give one more bad news. That Lakshman is dying there. So he requested Hanuman, please, can you just inform her and go? Hanuman went to Sumitra, met her, and told Sumitra that Lakshman is in trouble. He's almost on the verge of dying. And when Sumitra heard that her son was dying, her reaction shocked Hanuman. You know what she said? She said, Lakshman is dying. It's glorious to die in the service of Lord Ram. He said, if my one son is dying, take my second son, take Shatrughan with you. Seva to Lord Ram should not stop. Hanuman was shocked. He was so surprised that what kind of mother is this? What kind of family is this? Everyone in the family is only thinking about serving. Everyone in the family is not thinking about themselves at all and their feelings. And Hanuman really appreciated Sumitra's greatness from his heart. This world is filled with mothers who have sacrificed for their children for the sake of society. Look at the Indian Army. If you look at the kind of mothers that have sacrificed for the sake of the country, for the sake of society, it's just so amazing. The world is filled with so many such mothers who are ready to make all kinds of sacrifices for the welfare of society. And therefore, we find from here, Hanuman leaves and takes the mountain along with him. But as I said, a small part of the mountain remains back in Ayodhya. And that's what Mani Parvat is. So let us all pray and worship this particular mountain, which this is a section of Ayodhya, which is known as Mani Parvat. It's an amazing section, and I would like to give you all darshan of this place. And why we are praying at this place, Sanjeevani, where there's a section of the Sanjeevani herbs fallen. This is a place of healing. This is a place where all kinds of wounds can be healed. So let us pray that not just physical wounds that we all once in a while experience, but there are so many other mental wounds that we all have experienced. Traumas, scars, so many painful wounds that we have carrying within our own systems. So let us pray to the Sanjeevani mountains that we get healed of all those wounds that and scars that we go through in our own lives' journeys. please have darshan of Maniparvat. Before you go further, I would like to give you all a very special darshan for a very beautiful place, which is another story connected to the Ramayana. This is a place which is known as, this is in connection to the Sarai River only. It's in fact one of the ghats of the Sarai River, which we had darshan of some time back. This place is known as uh, Danta Dhavana Kund. Danta Dhavana Kund means Danta means teeth. This is the place where Ram and Lakshman, Bharat, Shatrughan, and the four brothers would come and brush their teeth, and they would wash over here. So, if anybody would like to have this beautiful darshan of Danta Dhavana Kund, this is the place where the the Supreme Lord washed his mouth, and it's such an auspicious and beautiful place. Let us please have darshan of this ghat, Danta Dhavana Kund. So we are now going to one of the most beautiful places of Ayodhya. And again, I said every place seems to be beautiful, but it is. That's how it is. And the story of Lord Ram Katha cannot be completed without Hanuman Katha, and Hanuman Katha cannot be completed without Ram Katha. So here is the place which is associated with Hanumanji, which is known as Hanuman Gari. Hanuman Gari is a place where it is explained that Hanuman guards Ayodhya of sitting there. Hanuman Gari is supposed to be the heart of Ayodhya, because in the heart of Hanumanji, Ram and Sita reside, and Sita and Ram are the heart of Ayodhya, literally. And therefore, Hanuman Gari becomes the heart of Ayodhya, and is explained that Hanuman Gari is the place where Hanuman guards the Ram Janmabhoomi from. It is very close to Ram Janmabhoomi area, and it is explained that this place, Lord Hanumanji, is in a beautiful red form. And all of us, if you do not know this story, I'm going to share the story of how Hanuman has this red form. It is explained that Hanumanji, he was very intrigued by the fact that Ram loves Sita so much. Hanuman got many blessings from Ram and Sita. And one of the blessings that's Hanuman's favorite blessing, of all the blessings that he got, was Sita told Hanumanji something very interesting. This was just before he took off from Lanka, returning back to Lord Ram in Kishkinda, when he met Kema as a messenger. After he burnt Lanka and he was just going to go away, this is where the Sundarkand, literally the last phase of it. Sita gives Hanuman a blessing. You know what she says? She tells him that I bless you that the one you want to love will love you. Interesting blessing. So Hanuman, when he gets the blessing on the Sita, he becomes relieved. He feels, wow, the burden has gone off his head now. Now the problem of loving is not his. Now Ram has to put effort in loving him now. That is the whole mood of Hanumanji when he got that blessing. So it is explained that Hanuman was very intrigued how Ram loves Sita more than he loves him. Sita already gave him blessing that Ram will love him. But the reality is Ram loves Sita more. He can see that. So Hanuman is thinking there must be some secret Sita has, something she does which he is not able to do, or he doesn't know, because of which he is able to control Ram so much. So he decides that he's going to follow Sita everywhere in Ayodhya and check what she does. So full day, Hanuman, he keeps following Sita everywhere. And Sita is seeing this monkey follow her everywhere. She's wondering, what is he up to? But she doesn't say anything because Hanuman has done so much for them. She just tolerates it. Late in the evening, Hanuman has not found anything which is different, which he feels is special. Late in the evening, Sita is dressing herself up because Ram is going to come from the food rooms. So while she's getting ready, she puts a little sindoor, red sindoor on her head. Hanuman doesn't understand what that means. Hanuman is a brahmachari, by the way, and on top of that, he is a monkey in a different community. He doesn't understand what exactly this red stuff is about. So he asks Sita, what is this red thing? So Sita now, she doesn't know how to explain to him, So she makes it very simple. She tells him, this red dot on my head makes Ram very happy. And Hanuman jumps at it. He says, wow, this is exactly what I'm looking for. He ran away from there. And Sita was wondering what happened. What did I say that she ran away? So Hanuman just ran away across the streets of Ayodhya. And he ran into a place, a marketplace. And in that marketplace, he found this place where they were selling this huge quantities of sindoor. And he asked them, can you give me some sindoor? They gave him a little chutki baro, little bit of sindoor. That's usually what when you ask for sindoor, that's what you get. Hanuman said, I don't want like this. I want a whole goni of sindoor. And they showed him a whole goni. And Hanuman just picked up the goni and emptied the whole goni on himself. Top to bottom, filled with red sindoor. And everybody is wondering, what is wrong with him? Who does that? And Hanuman was convinced that this is what makes Ram happy. So ran into the courtroom of Ayodhya. Ram was in a very serious discussion. And as soon as Hanuman enters, everyone starts laughing and rolling on the ground. And then Ram initially is very serious. And then suddenly when he looks at Hanuman, he just goes mad. He's laughing so much. Hanuman had never seen Ram laugh. And then he feels it has worked. Because Ram is happy with me now, technically. Hanuman becomes excited and he's so excited. And then Ram finally asks him, can you tell me what did you do? Why did you do this? So Hanuman explains, Mother Sita told me that a little sindoor on her head, little red dot on her head makes you so happy. So I thought if a little red on her head makes you so happy, what if I'm fully decorated with red? How happy you'll be. Ram was so pleased with Hanumanji's this attitude. So Hanumanji was ready to do anything to please the Lord. Even if it means looking like a fool, even if it means looking really weird and everybody else laughing at him. That's the greatness of Hanumanji. And if we're commemorating that day, even till today, every temple of Hanumanji you'll find Hanuman being decorated by sindoor. That shows his innocence. That shows his desire to please the Lord. That shows the extent to which he can go to please the Lord Ram. And let us have darshan of Hanumanji in Hanumangari, in this most holy place, which is considered to be the most auspicious place in Ayodhya, the heart of Ayodhya. And finally, we will end the parikrama of Ayodhya by visiting a place which is considered to be a very sad, heart-rending place for the Vaishnavas, for devotees of Lord Ram, because this is the place which is known as Guttar Kund. This is the place where there's a ghat on the Sarai river, where Lord Ram entered into the ghats, into the Sarai river, and is explained that his entire body melted and became milk and merged with the Sarai river. That is how Lord Ram ended his pastime in this material world. Every incarnation of the Lord ends his pastime in a way which is very mysterious. We find Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he ended his pastimes, he just entered in the Tota Gopinath temple. And in the Tota Gopinath temple, he just merged into the deity of the Lord. A small crack on the knee of Tota Gopinath, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu just merged and he disappeared from there, from the material world, in that way. Lord Krishna used this hunter named Jara to disappear from this material world. So the Lord, whenever he disappears, he does something very mysterious, which gives the faithless a reason to doubt. And it gives the faithful a reason to enhance their conviction and belief, overcome their doubt. And no matter how much reason is there to doubt, for the faithful, for those who have conviction in the Lord, they find ways and means to be inspired to understand it, accept it, and appreciate that disappearance of the Lord. Because ultimately, Janma karma chame divyam evam yogiti tatvatah tektva deha punar janma naiti mameti swarjana. So Krishna is saying, somebody who understands the janma and karma of the Lord, birth and activities of the Lord, that person never takes birth again in the material world, but rather comes back to the spiritual world. If the Lord has the power to give you eternal life, what to speak of him? So if the Lord has the power to give you deathlessness, what makes you think that he dies? So these are ways in which the Lord concludes his pastimes in mysterious ways. Of course, when we hear a pastime like this, it is very painful for the devotees, because the devotees will never want the Lord's pastimes to end. But everything in the material world comes to an end at some point. But the leaders of the Lord are nitya. They continue somewhere else. The Lord winds up his pastime here, simultaneously is starting a pastime somewhere else. Just like the sun sets here, but it is simultaneously rising somewhere else. And similarly, the Lord is eternal, and therefore his pastimes are also eternal. So let us end our journey of Ayodhya by having darshan of this most holy, most amazing place, which is Guttar Kund. And with this, we will come to the conclusion of Ayodhya Dham. Very grateful to all of you for your enthusiastic participation in these yatras. And I am just hoping and praying that these yatras have been, obviously, it cannot be a replacement to the actual experience of visiting there, but on a mansik level and on a low budget level, this is the best way that you can visit all these holy places at the convenience of your home and the safety of your home with your family members. And you can keep visiting it again and again and again because these recordings are going to be there forever. So, with this, we'll conclude and uh, please meditate on these beautiful pastimes of Ayodhya and all the meanings of the different places that we spoke about and also the insights through stories that we spoke about. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Ayodhya Dham ki, Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.
RG Media YouTube channel. Like, share, subscribe.